Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1037B, and today's date is August 1st, 2016, and the title of the episode is The U.S. AUKUS event has begun. Be prepared for more. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I just finished up an interview with Jim Willey. A lot of people have been asking for Jim Willey, and we talked about many different things, and one of the things we talked about was this new currency, and he laid out pretty much how this is going to come about. And I'm going to put this interview on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel tomorrow morning. And this is something that everyone should listen to because it really goes into depth on how this is going to come about, what the United States is going to look like, and how the entire thing is going to unfold. So tomorrow morning, if you are on the X22 Report email alert system, you'll get an email. If not, just go to X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You can see the video there, or you can come over to the x22report.com site or newssentinel.com. You can scroll down a little bit, look over the right-hand side, you'll see the video there. Again, this will be up tomorrow morning, August 2nd, which is Tuesday. And I do believe that everyone should carve out some time, listen to what he's saying. He explains how this currency that we're using right now, it will no longer exist. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, at this point, most everyone heard of the Zika virus. We're down in South America. They said if you got bitten by a mosquito, it was carrying the Zika virus, which caused microcephaly, which is a small human head, and the corporate media just ran with it. Now, there are many individuals down there saying, no, this had nothing to do with that. It had to do with pesticides. Doctors did a study down there, and they said, yes, it had nothing to do with the Zika virus. The Zika virus has been around for a very, very long time. But what we've been seeing is that the U.S., the corporate media, they've been continually pushing the idea that the Zika virus is here and it's going to spread. Now, they've done this with Ebola. They've done this with other diseases. And they put out their computer models letting you know how many people are going to be affected. And then they all of a sudden start up with the idea that we need vaccines for it. And it looks like they might be preparing for a new PSYOP scare with the Zika virus. So we can see down in Florida that something is happening there where they have cases of the Zika virus. There are even reports that the police are going door to door asking for urine samples. And normally this, when you look at it, just a passing news story, not that big of a deal. But normally this is how a PSYOP is created. It's the early stages of an upcoming PSYOP event, likely to be staged maybe later this summer or maybe into the fall. And they always set up the story first. Recall the time when they were first introducing the Islamic State. We had all the beheading videos to scare us, to set the stage for the entrance of the Islamic State onto the global stage. So before you can roll out a major Zika virus vector-related PSYOP scare in the United States, you have to transport the virus here to the U.S. first and then show how it's already spreading via mosquitoes. Now, we can see right now this is what they're doing. Florida Governor Rick Scott said Friday that 4 people infected with Zika in South Florida likely contracted the virus from local mosquitoes. First, they said it was people traveling into the country. That's how they got it. Now they're saying, yes, the mosquitoes are here. They have the Zika virus. So when we continually look at this, we have to say to ourselves, what are they doing? And we know for a fact, because we're getting information from the World Health Organization Director General Margaret Chan. She's on record stating the following: although a causal link between Zika infection and pregnancy and microcephaly has not, and I must emphasize, has not been established, the circumstantial evidence is suggestive and extremely worrisome. So there is no causal link between the two as of yet. They haven't established this yet. But they're continuing with the story. And I know people keep writing in saying, don't talk about the elections not going forward. Don't talk about an event occurring. But when you think about this, how can you stop the elections? Well, you can say there's an outbreak of the Zika virus. It's all over the country. State of emergency. You can stop the elections. Obama can stay in power. There can be physical attacks. State of emergency. Obama can stay in power. And this is a scenario that we must still consider, because the U.S. government central bankers, if they don't have the person they want in power, they're going to do whatever they have to do to make sure either the president stays where he is, or they need to make sure they get the person they want in office. If the person is put into office that they do not want, we definitely can expect something to occur. And this is why we still need to look at this, because we're heading down a path right now where things are accelerating, they're getting worse. The rule of law is thrown out the window. Rules apply to the everyday folk completely different to the upper echelon. The upper echelon, they don't follow the same rules anymore. And the upper echelon, the 1%ers, the elites, the central bankers, they do believe that they're above the law. And what they want is what they want, and I don't care what anyone else thinks. And this is something we need to watch out for. Out in Germany, we see things are really heating up. The people there, well, they're getting tired of Merkel not listening to them, saying, listen, we don't want the refugees pouring into our country. We shouldn't have an open door policy at this point. Look what has happened. We've had different attacks. We had a knife attack, suicide bombing, the Munich attack, shooting. And this is getting out of hand right now. Now, we can see that Merkel is saying this has nothing to do with immigration. But when everyday people look at this, they say we have a problem, and maybe we need to calm things down and shut the doors and see what's really going on. And of course, the governments do not want to do this. So the people, they're protesting. There are pictures of her splattered in blood, saying, resign, get out, you're not listening to us. There was a new survey that was done that found that 83% of Germans see immigration as their nation's biggest challenge. This is twice as many as a year ago. And it's getting worse. This is why we see the European Union. It is completely breaking apart right now, because the countries are saying, listen, we don't want this right now. We don't want all these refugees. We will control our borders. And we have to remember where all these refugees are coming from. This was a plan created by the United States government central bankers. Yes, there are a lot of elites in on this. And at the time, they were being housed in Turkey. And at the right time, they let them loose on the European community to bring them in line to say, listen, we need to go into Syria, or more of this is going to occur. But all of this was done because of what the United States is doing. The United States is in each one of these Middle Eastern countries creating chaos in the region, war in the region for years. People are fleeing because of the United States. The United States is the cause of the refugees. And they're using this to put pressure on Europe. So the people of each one of these countries are saying, listen, we don't want this right now. We need to control it. And this is why the governments are saying, you know something? We're going to take control of our borders. But some governments don't want to go along with this because there's an agenda attached to it. There's always some type of an agenda. These things aren't coincidences. They just don't happen. There's always something behind all of it. Now, out in Afghanistan, we understand the troops in Afghanistan, well, they're never coming home. Actually, more troops will be heading out to Afghanistan. We understand they're there to guard the poppy fields. They use the poppies to pay for their covert operations through drug smuggling across the globe. And we know that the White House loosened restrictions on airstrikes in Afghanistan. Now, since they've done this, guess what? The Pentagon officials, they dialed up the number of strikes, and they're bombing Afghanistan like crazy. July, we have seen the most U.S. airstrikes in Afghanistan of the entire year. And we're seeing the United States in each one of these countries, they're starting to make their move. The August event is here, and we're starting to see the introduction of what's to come here. Because out in Ukraine, we see the military there. They have fired 700 artillery shots into the Donetsk area. The war there is now heating up. It's getting worse. We see the United States Army Secretary Eric Fanning said that the drills in South Korea, they're going to be going ahead next month no matter what North Korea says. North Korea is saying, listen, don't have the drills. You're trying to provoke us. We know what they're here for. But the U.S. is saying, no, we're having the drills because we want to provoke you. And of course, North Korea is very worried because they're having these drills right on their doorstep because the U.S., they want a war started. Now, very interestingly, Theresa May, well, she just backtracked hours before signing a deal for China on a nuclear power station. China says that while Beijing understands and respects Britain's decision to reconsider the deal, it cannot understand the suspicious approach that comes from nowhere to Chinese investment in making the post moment. And we can see at this point in time, the UK, all the private Western Central countries, they're preparing for war with China, with Russia, with North Korea. And we can see out in the China Sea that this is really heating up at this point. You have to remember the South China Sea, this area is a naval crossroads of roughly $5 trillion in annual trade. It's a transit sea lane to roughly half of global daily merchant shipping, a third of the global oil trade, and 2/3 of all liquid natural gas trade. It's also the key hub of China's global supply chain. The South China Sea protects China's access to the Indian Ocean, which happens to be Beijing's crucial energy lifeline. And we can see it is also part of the New Silk Road. The South China Sea is strictly linked to the Maritime Silk Road. And everything that happened in The Hague, where they came to this decision that it's illegal for China to occupy this area, China doesn't recognize it. Remember, The Hague is composed of 4 Europeans, 1 American, and there's no Asians represented in there. Nothing. So the ruling is non-binding. For Beijing, it is crystal clear that they must protect their entire area. It's like Russia or China coming to the United States and trying to block the trade routes in and out of the United States. This is what the United States is trying to do in the South China Sea. They're trying to provoke China They're trying to cut off their trade. They're trying to control the trade area, trying to make China angry. They want China to do something. This is what this is all about. It's not the freedom of navigation. It has nothing to do with that. The United States government central bankers, our system, it's at its end. China, Russia, they're the new up and coming system right now. And the United States government central bankers, they know this. They understand. And this is why they're pushing so hard at this point. Out in Yemen, we see the UN had a proposal to end the fight. Now, the Yemen government said, okay, we'll accept this UN proposal. And the Houthis said, no, well, it's kind of one-sided here. That we would have to leave our key strategic areas. We'd have to surrender our weapons. And we're waiting to have some type of unity government where we're included in the government. Now, of course, the Yemen government, Hadi, doesn't want this. The United States government central bankers, they don't want this. They want the puppet government back in place to have full control. We see the United States government central bankers, well, they've just made their move in Libya. Of course, they're using the cover story that they're going after the Islamic State, which we know this is not to be true. They're going after all those individuals, the other government that was not put into place by the U.S. and the coalition forces. They're hitting those areas. And the unity government invited the United States in. They wanted them to come in and start bombing in this area. And we knew this is exactly what was going to happen. Now we see they're already telling us that there's going to be no U.S. ground forces, but we know there are special op teams already inside of Libya. We know France is there and many other countries. And we know this is a complete lie because this is the beginning of what they were planning to do for a very long time. And it's funny how they waited until August 1st to start all this when Congress goes on break until after Labor Day. And I believe this is the beginning of the event. Now, the coup up in Turkey, I believe, was the real start of it. They were hoping to take complete control of Turkey, as we can see now, hoping to use that to springboard everything into Syria. And those plans might have gotten trampled on, but I'm sure the U.S. has some contingent plans just in case that didn't go through. And this is what we need to watch right now. And out in Turkey, what we're seeing is Erdogan is going to be bringing all the Turkish armed forces under civilian control. He will control the armed forces at this point. And we understand that the Incirlik Air Base was surrounded. At this point, it looks like they might be making their move to get the United States out of this area. They don't trust the United States anymore. And things are unraveling very, very fast. Now, the U.S., well, they're trying to talk to Erdogan right now. We have U.S. officials. They're going to meet with him to talk about the entire coup and what has happened here. And as the situation moves forward, we see that things are actually getting worse. Now, because of what happened with Incirlik, where the entire base was surrounded, we see U.S. combat units, they're on high alert at this point. Fort Campbell and other active duty combat installations through the U.S. were placed on high alert Friday. All units in the 101 Airborne Division are currently operating under a 12-hour recall order as of Friday night, according to the active duty soldier, and other combat bases are also on same recall status for potential combat deployment. And the Screaming Eagles, the 101st Airborne Division, they're an elite modular specialized light infantry division of the United States Army. trained for air assault operations, and they are on high alert, ready to go. So what we're seeing right now is things are unraveling. The event has started, and I'm thinking the next couple of days or maybe a week, we're going to see more of this, because as we can see, this system, it is falling apart. It's crashing. The economy is limping along. Their statistical numbers don't even make sense compared to what's happening in the economy. Banks are failing in Europe. They're needing bailouts. And the situation is getting worse and worse as time goes on. And we're seeing that the United States is doing whatever they possibly can to keep hold of Syria. Very interestingly, where the Islamic State was, the U.S. was able to win control of most of the Islamic State territory, especially in Manbij. So the U.S.-backed forces, they control 40% of the Islamic State Syria stronghold. Now, this is not really a surprise, because we know what the United States has been doing throughout Syria is having the Islamic State move off and having the moderate rebels, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, move into that area. They morph the Islamic State into the other terrorist groups, and they make it seem like, look, we just won this battle in this area, and now we can control it. So we have the United States right now in Syria getting ready for this major event. Might have been delayed a little bit for what happened in Turkey. We see the U.S. is already starting to bomb inside of Libya with the permission of the unity government, which the people don't want. So we're seeing these events occur. They've started in August already, and I believe it's going to get worse and worse as we move throughout this month. And what we're seeing right now is a total breakdown of the entire system. The United States government central bankers, they are becoming desperate. They will do anything they possibly can to keep control, and we should be watching out for this next event. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.